four of us here basically that are having a problem, 4 different management scenarios. 2 of us had the same veterinary, so we had the same herd health regimen. Nutritional levels were 4 different nutrition factors, 4 different facilities. I said we had 4 totally different everything here, but we had one common denominator. We're all feeding your corn. And we take your corn out and feed another corn, it quits. So the 2 GARS people are sitting there, and the one goes and he looks at me and he says, how is this our problem? I said, you know, I said, we got you here to explain this to you, and that everyone has to be the first one with the problem. I said, we're not standing here with 3 lawyers. We're here out of doing the right thing. We're not asking for compensation, although it would be nice. We've all experienced here, between the 4 of us, probably $500,000 to $1 million worth of damage off of this and lost income. We need to figure out what happened, what's doing it, and to get it stopped so that we don't have this spreading out beyond here. And he's still kicking around. He says, you know, I'm kind of wondering if you got 4 other guys in the other corner of the state that you've had a meeting like this before. That's the thing. I said, if we find that out, then this is going to get a little different. But I said, in the meantime, we're here to try to do the right thing, get this stopped, get it out of the food chain so that we don't have the problems with the livestock, or that it bothers our children later on. I said, I've got daughters, Ralph's got children. We all need to know where we're at on this thing. So the GARS people said, well, we'll take a sample of the corn and we'll take it back and we'll do a little investigating on it.
Another example, let's say you plant genetically modified canola one year, and then you want to plant non-GM canola the next year. Well, 10% of your harvest one year is lying in the ground because it wasn't picked up by the harvesting equipment. And so now, all of a sudden, mixed in with your other canola, you have genetically modified and non-GMO. But that's not the worst of it. That same canola seed can lay dormant for up to 6 years, or maybe longer, I don't know. And that means that over time, you're still going to be getting contamination from the very first planting, which was GM, and everything else was non-GM. Someone calculated that it would take you 16 years of planting non-GM crops until you got a percentage of GM that was below 1%.
I called my agronomist one day and I says, you know, Chad, we haven't heard anything from those people. Why don't you give a call and see where they're at on this deal? He called back an hour later and he says, Jerry, you're not going to believe this. I says, what? Well, he says, I got a hold of Mel, and Mel was just apologizing. He says, they lost the sample. They didn't do any testing on it. They didn't do anything. I said, well, what'd you tell him? He says, well, I told him that you were saving 40,000 bushels for him to come get another sample of it if they wanted to. And that's been the last communications that we had out of them. Now, when all the media publicity started on this thing and they were contacted, their public statement has always been is that they've investigated this thoroughly and that it was no fault of their seed. Well, how do you investigate something if you lost the sample?
If he'd have got to us before we were depopulating, getting out of the sows, we might have stayed in it and seen if we could cure the problem, buy some corn from somebody else.
Right now, we're feeding strictly conventional corn to our breeding sows. Anything that we want to get bred to become pregnant, we feed strictly conventional corn. I'm not sure if they use them strictly for their own use or if they sell them to other labs for all different kinds of testing they run on the mice. Well, all of a sudden they quit reproducing down there, and they couldn't figure out why until they got a hold of some information from up here with our GMO corn. And what they found out is the bedding they use in the cages was GMO corn cobs ground up. And they figured that that was the problem why the mice were not reproducing, was because they were getting these toxins from the corn cobs.
I firmly and truly believe with all my heart that GMOs may have some good aspects to them from that nutritional standpoint, if they would focus on that. But the way they're going about it now with the crossbreeding unlike species into plants like they're doing in the manipulation, we have an example in nature of what happens when unlike species crossbreed. And it's a mule. You take a horse and a donkey and they crossbreed and you get a mule. Mules won't reproduce. I feel the good Lord knows a lot better what he's doing with the genetics and the DNA of these plants more so than what these scientists do at this point in time. But he's going to also give them the free will to get themselves strong.
At the tip of the top, almost like the fruit is at the top getting the sunlight. When normally corn is down to the base.
Empezamos usando corn la destrucción de variedades tradicionales de maíz en México. Cuando descubrimos aquello.